If these hot books tank, I think it may be CGC's fault. Let's get into it. The hottest comic books in the world with Gem Mint from Gem Mint Collectibles. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, but I could be feeling a lot better if you guys hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about number 10 on the list. First time on the Hot 10, coming over from the trending video.
Marvel Premiere number 12, debuting in 1973, the first appearance of Lilia Calderu. This is a comic that landed on the trending 10 and shot its way over to the Hot 10 in under 14 days.
And it did that because it's had 3 record-breaking sales. The reason why? We've got confirmation that this character will be appearing in the upcoming Agatha series, Coven of Chaos.
To be portrayed by Patti LuPone, who just went on The View a couple weeks ago to talk about a role she was playing on a completely different movie, and then ended up spilling the beans, Kevin's beans, all over the stage, talking about her role on Agatha and confirming a lot of different Agatha spec.
Now, you can tell by the census count that not many were speculating on this book. I mean, the character shows up and dies in the same issue. Only 106 slabs on the census, and that's the same as what it was on that trending list back on April 20th. Shout out 420.
People are hunting for this comic book now, submitting them now, and that's why I mentioned this is in CGC's hands. We have to see how many of these books end up on the census, because that's what's going to affect the prices, because the demand is high, but the supply is low. There's only 8 copies graded at a 9.8. The heights that this book reached was back in 2021 when it sold for $310. The most recent 9.8 sale puts it at $300.
And we haven't seen a 9.8 sale since 2021. There were 2 strong performers in 9.6. The first one selling for $181, shout out Incredible Hulk, and the second for $200, putting it 14% above its 12-month average.
We have a 3.5 shattering the records, last selling for $18 in May, now up 94%, selling for a strong $35. I mean, you guys feeling this? No one was buying this book before. The 9.0 sold for $58 back in December. It's up 28%, selling for under $100, $74 sale. The 9.2 sold for $72 back in 2021. It's up 25%, now selling for $90. What great spec. Cheap investment, low risk.
And tough and high grade. We can compare it to 2 issues prior, the first appearance of Shuma Gorath in Marvel Premiere 10. That has a total of 598 slabs on the census, and only 7 of them are 9.8.
I want to see some shout outs for Comic Butch. He missed me while I was in Vegas, so he's going to be joining us today. He does like to read the comments at the list at number 9. Let's keep it going with another book that moved from the trending list to the Hot 10.
Another book being influenced by an upcoming Marvel property. Number 9 on the list, we have Giantsized Chillers, issue number 1. It's the first appearance of Lilith, the daughter of Dracula.
This book spiked initially because of the Mia Goth speculation that she would portray Lilith. Considering Blade is going to go up against a lot of vampires, this right here is a possibility. When you couple that with her stellar role in both the hit horror movies X and Pearl, that right there pushed this book up past the trending to the Hot 10 this week. Clearly the comic fam isn't just starving for Blade updates, they are excited about this pick.
Only 2 more slabs added to the census since it made that trending video on 420, bringing that total up to 812 copies. The CGC 9.8, just 27 copies on the census. The record high for that was $4,000 in January of 2022, but the last GPA sale down about $1,200, selling for $2,880 in March of 2022.
Just further proof that the prices of these hot books are going to be dependent on CGC's grading and how quick they can get them out. We have a 7.0 going for $159. That's 5% over the recent 12-month average. The 7.5 sold for $175. That's an increase of 19%. The 9.0 hit $300, an increase of 4%. And the 9.4 hit $700, and that's an increase of 8%. Gem, hit him with those record breakers.
5.5 broke record, last selling for $73 in November of last year, up 23%, selling for $90, and the 6.5 sold for $114 in November as well, and that's up 62%, selling for $185.
The Blade movie has been a roller coaster ride. Dates have been pushed, new directors, creative differences. Well, we just had news hit the internet that's gone way under the radar, and I think members really need to start paying attention. This is huge news. We have Nick Pizzolatto. You know him as the creator of True Detective, touted as one of the best shows of the 2010s, attached to rewrite this script.
Now, with the current Writers Guild strike, we may see more delays in any of these upcoming movies that are still in that writing process.
Now, the industry knew this strike was coming, and that makes sense why James Gunn had to rush to get his Superman Legacy script finished this week. And speaking of James Gunn's spike in comics, at the list at number 8, Batman 181, the first appearance of Poison Ivy.
Now, we know James Gunn likes to cast his friends and family, and Nebula star Karen Gillan expressed interest in wanting to play Poison Ivy in the upcoming DCU.
Listen to this James Gunn quote regarding Guardians of the Galaxy. "The cast is like my family. I cannot tell you how close I am to Chris Pratt and Pom Klementieff and Dave Bautista and Zoe Saldana and Karen Gillan. But I also know I will work with all these people individually again, probably at my other job."
All right, so a little bit of a stretch to say Poison Ivy confirmed just yet, but the book's got a lot going for it anyway. First appearance of Poison Ivy, who hasn't been on screen in live action in over 26 years when she was played by Uma Thurman in Batman and Robin.
I recommend the current ongoing run of Poison Ivy by G. Willow Wilson. You can pick this up at your LCS right now. It's more mature, it's horror focused, and if they bring a little bit of that to the live screen, I think this book could be a banger.
And even though there are almost 3,000 copies on the CGC census, it's tough and high grade. Look at the top 4 grade points. All of the last sales were also their record highs. The 9.2 has 32 copies, selling for $15,600. The 9.4 has 20. Last sale, $10,500. And that was November of 2020, 3 years ago, still waiting on some price correction. The 9.6 has 9 copies, with the last sale / record high being $55,200 from November of 2022. And then we have the monster, 9.8, with only 3 copies on the census, with that record high sale of $90,000 from November of 2020.
I remember reporting that $90,000 sale 3 years ago, Gem. Comic fam, hit that subscribe button. We're here every week, and we haven't skipped a beat since we started this video. Let's take a look at the 4.0, because it's trending up 8% when you compare it over the recent 12 months, selling for $719. The 5.0, up 6%, now selling for $940. The 6.5 sold for $1725. That's an increase of 19%. And the 7.5 sold for an increase of 9%, $2,750 this past week. By the time of this filming, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 will be out. Will Adam Warlock be a character that's going to transition us to a whole plethora of new narratives as it pertains to what's going to happen in the cosmic MCU? Or won't he?
And all of that's going to determine what happens with this book. Number 7 on the list, Fantastic Four, issue 67, the origin and first cameo appearance of him.
Who would later be renamed Adam Warlock by the High Evolutionary, who's going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, portrayed by Chukwudi Iwuji. I digress. We have a Fantastic Four 67 hitting the list. A 1.8 sold for $75 this week for an increase of 9% when you compare it over the last 12 months. The 2.0 sold for $110, an increase of 17%. And the 5.0 hit $200. That's an increase of 3%.
But wait a minute, the 9.6 is up 12%, selling for $5,280. Over 300 more slabs have been added to the census since you guys talked about this on the trending video back on January 19th, bringing that total to 3,983. Check out the 9.8. There are only 13 copies that exist. The last GPA sale was also its record high, where it sold for $17,000, but that was way back in 2018.
Considering we haven't seen a 9.8 sell publicly since Adam Warlock was teased in the post-credit scene 5 years ago, do you think it would break records now? And do you think he's going to live past Guardians of the Galaxy 3? This actor hasn't signed up for future roles yet, very similar to the Moon Knight agreement.
Yeah, Will Poulter got the Oscar Isaac treatment just signing on for one project, but take a look at Moon Knight. Where there's success, there will be sequels.
Speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy, I have a trade dress copy of Guardians of the Galaxy 1 featuring all the heroines. We have Nebula, Gamora, and Mantis all on one cover, done wonderfully by Ben Harvey, going in the May mystery mail call. 1 per box. Join the community, support what we do, and give me an excuse to send you some comic books every single month. Link in the description, or just hit comictom101.com. Now, let's look at the list at number 6 with the greatest Bronze Age comic book of all time, Incredible Hulk. 181.
The first full appearance of Wolverine, and with Deadpool 3 coming so soon, November of this year, it's crazy that we haven't got any news yet. Let's talk about the little bit that we do know. First of all, Peter from X-Force from Deadpool 2, we know he'll be returning in the upcoming film.
You remember Peter from Deadpool 2? He was the regular guy with a mustache with no powers. And we also had Hugh Jackman news. He was featured at the Met Gala with his wife. And no Deadpool 3 anything except for that classic Logan beard we saw him have last.
It's almost like seeing Wolverine at the Hellfire Gala. Now, as popular as this book is, you would think people who owned a copy would have already submitted it to CGC, But you'd be wrong. There are 316 more slabs on the census since this reached number 8 on the Hot 10 on January 2nd.
The 4.0 is up 1%, selling consistently, recently selling for $3,000. The 4.5 sold for $3,500 for an increase of 8%. The 7.5 is up 5%, selling for $5,899. And the 8.0 is up 20%, selling for $8,099.
Which brings us halfway through this list, and we have a repeat offender. Star Wars, issue number 1, the one that started it all, the first appearance of basically everyone that you know and love.
1977 goodness, and this was a book that I've mentioned multiple times, sold for under $1,000 for decades. And then recently, in the last couple years, shot well above $5,000 and has kind of come down to earth. The 9.8 had heights reached back in 2022 of $9,600, and the most recent sale, well, made the list this week. The 5.0 is up 26%. The 6.0 is up 8%. The 6.5 is up 8%, and the 8.5 is up 4%.
The 9.0 sold for $420. That's 10% above his 12-month average. The 9.2 selling for $472. The 9.4 for $650, and the 9.8 sold for $4,560. A far departure from its heights that it reached, but it's in line with that 12-month average.
We got a lot of updates about Star Wars. Clearly, we are going to be getting Star Wars every year for the foreseeable future, and a lot of books are spiking. But this book leading the list tells me that members are aggressively buying what they know is a safe investment versus a risky investment. Take a look at Key Collector Comics, the best comic app in existence, and just search Star Wars titles. There are so many books that are worth speculating on, but Key Collector will help you navigate those waters because it gets pretty deep.
Use code TOM101 to unlock a free 2-week subscription to the app. Try it for yourself because I have a feeling there's going to be more Star Wars books on this list and on the list in the future. Moving on to number 4, we got a fan favorite, Swamp Thing, issue 37, the first appearance of John Constantine.
One of my favorite Key comic books. We have the Warner Brothers announcement that happened back in September 2022 that Keanu Reeves wasn't just hyped to portray Constantine again, but was granted a sequel to a movie that many of us wanted and few thought would actually happen.
Now, this was before the big James Gunn announcement, but I can't imagine he wouldn't want to work with Keanu.
Big shout out to our supporter and good friend Noah from Noah's Amazing Reviews over on Instagram. This is the next gen of comic book content creators. He straight up interviews some of the most prestigious actors, writers, and artists in our industry. And he got to meet Keanu Reeves over the last couple weeks, and that video has since gone viral. I'll put the link in the description for his Instagram. Everyone's got to follow our buddy Noah.
The last time this book was on the Hot 10, it reached number 5 back on January 16th, and there are 181 more copies on the census since then. Kind of weird that number keeps popping up. There are 379 9.8s, which has a record high of $3,700 set back in June of 2021. The last GPA sale, $2,300 in April of this year. And there are 2 9.9s. Can you believe it sold for just $800 back in July of 2010? I wonder what one would go for if it hit the market today.
6.5 sold for $200 this past week for an increase of 14%. 9.0 sold for $375, an increase of 14% as well. The 9.6 sold for $690 for an increase of 22%. And Gem just hit you with that $2,300 sale. That was an increase of 31% when you compare it over the recent 12-month average.
Which brings us to number 3 on the list, crossing the $1 billion mark. We have Super Mario Bros. Number 1, the first limited series featuring stories inspired by Nintendo characters.
Outshining so many animation films of recent years, we have a supply that is not meeting the demand and pretty low census count on high-graded copies. Since this book landed on the Hot 10 2 weeks ago, there's been an increase of 17 copies added to the census, and only 32 of which are graded at a 9.8, and there's been no increases to 9.8s since we chatted about this last. There are 28 copies graded at a 9.6, and same thing, no new numbers to report on.
Speaking of that 9.6, it just broke record. It last sold for $810 in 2022. It's up 2% now, selling for $825.
7.5 is up 25%, selling for $198. The 8.0 sold for $203 for an increase of 18%, and the 9.2 is up 6%, selling for $255. Because the higher grades are harder to come by, we're seeing a lot of love for the lower grades.
And this movie just made number 10 of the top 10 billion-dollar grossing animated films.
And it's getting really close to surpassing number 9 on that list with Finding Dory. Number 8 is Despicable Me 3. Number 7 and 6 is Toy Story 3 and 4. Number 5 on that list is Minions. Number 4, Incredibles number 2. Frozen and Frozen 2 at 3 and number 2. And then the number 1 animation movie to perform of all time is kind of a surprise to me. Didn't know it was this successful. Lion King, the remake.
I was kind of surprised about that too. I never caught the remake. The cartoon was the movie that I always grew up with. Moving on to number 2 on the list, we got more Star Wars, Heir to the Empire 1, the first appearance of Grand Admiral Thrawn.
So much Star Wars focus, and they're going completely different directions as it pertains to the slate that was just revealed. We have Star Wars 1, which is OG classic blue chip style investments. And then we have Grand Admiral Thrawn, which is future spec that's happening. But it's the closest spec that's going to pay off because we know Grand Admiral Thrawn is going to appear in the Ahsoka Tano series, which is essentially a continuation of the hit show Rebels.
Great way to look at these 2 different Star Wars keys that are both on the Hot 10 list, but both for different reasons. There are 14 more slabs on the census since this reached number 1 on last week's Hot 10, bringing that total up to 2,634. There are 6 more 9.6s, with the last GPA sale being $435, and 1 more 9.8, bringing that total to 359, with its last GPA sale being $870 April of this year.
If I didn't already own a 9.8, I would be looking at buying this book right now. $870 is way less than its heights that were reached back in 2021 of $2,300.
The 9.0 sold for $160. That's 13% above its 12-month average. The 9.2 sold for $172. That's 8% up. The 9.4 sold for $248, which is 14% up. And the 9.6, like I mentioned, sold for $435, which is 22% above that 12-month average.
Hit the like, slap the subscribe button. The number 1 book in the world is an ASM classic key from the Rogues Gallery of Peter Parker. We have Amazing Spider-Man 41, the first appearance of the Rhino,
who we now know is going to be a part of the upcoming Sony Craven movie, with teaser footage shown to a select few during CinemaCon.
The R rating that this film was granted has not just provided intrigue to the collector's base, it's provided confidence, pushing this book up to the number 1 book in the world this week.
The 4.5 is up 32% over its 12-month average, selling for $536. The 6.0 sold for $645, which is 12% up, and the 6.5 sold for $800, 18% above its average.
Now, although the last GPA sale for a 9.8, in which there are only 3 copies in existence, hit $60,000, there are more affordable copies that you can hunt for. A 0.5 sold for $155 this past week, and the 1.8, which last sold for $227 in 2022, is up 12%, selling for $255. And if you want a chance at winning one for free, I have a 5.0 that I'm gifting, and all you need to do to qualify to enter this free giveaway is sign up to my newsletter. This is how I communicate my drops, my secret variants, so that the community can get access to them first. And if you sign up, I will randomly select an email at the end of May and announce it on the show and send you this key. I appreciate your time today, as always.
Geek responsibly and stay minty fresh.
Enough said. Join us on Whatnot every you know what? Just come with me. I'll show you what we're doing. Ryan and Aaron Evans are here. Look at all these books. We got slabs, we got some exclusives, medals, Spidey. I mean, just join us on the best new app to buy and sell collectibles. Link is in the description. And you can get access to some of the best deals on the internet. We beat eBay every single week. I literally hold up the eBay screen and watch it go for under. So join us, link in the description, and have a great week.